Hello, hello. Good evening, y'all. Welcome to yet another edition of Do Over January. The woman called you Do Over January. I don't know. I hope the connectivity is good this evening. Today is day 10 rather, of The Woman Called You Do Over January, where we have been handling self care. It's our 31 days to declutter and deconstruct the mind to gain clarity. So today is our day 10. Today is our day 10. And for the last couple of days, we've been talking about self care as a means of decluttering the mind. We've handled emotional self care, we've handled spiritual self care, we've handled social self care. That was yesterday. And today we're handling mental self care. It's my sincere desire that by the time we're done with this self care, I think tomorrow should be financial self care. But I said, um, if I have to handle it, I can just skirt through. That I need to get somebody who can actually lay down the rules for us as far as it concerns financial financial care. Yes, that's what I said. So I am looking at the I'm coming out. Something is playing up with my studio. Okay, good. So I'm looking at the possibility to get somebody. If not, I'll make it um a topic we'll treat towards the end of our 31 days. So today's just the 10. So we actually have 21 more days. So far so good. We've talked about why we should, you know, do some form of self care. We've already handled ways and means for decluttering. We've done our very, very significant brain dumping. We've done our solution numbering system. I think after we are done with today, one very important aspect I would want to bring up for us, and I would handle is the importance of vision boarding. Vision boarding not as a trend, vision boarding not as a hype thing, but vision boarding as an essential way of decluttering your mind. With the way things are happening, it's become so important that we focus a lot on our mental health. And like I said, I'm not speaking from the perspective of a physician, no. I'm just speaking, from the perspective of someone who knows the importance of decluttering, someone who has experienced, firsthand what's the cost of having a cluttered mind, you know, the cost of it. And on this other side, the benefits of having learned how to declutter my mind, the techniques that were used, the techniques that were employed, and how it's, helped. That's why I said for the financial aspect, I would like somebody who I'd like to bring on somebody who knows more about that and possibly feature the person as we go on in the course of the 31 days. So today we'll be discussing the importance of mental self-care to declutter the mind. So I hope, at the end of this self-care series, which will tentatively end today till I can get somebody for the financial component of self-care, someone will begin to tick those boxes as to the checklists you would need to employ for any of the different components of self-care we've spoken about. So today is mental self-care. When we usually talk about anything that is mental, people actually just think it's something that has to do with colo, insanity. Okay, there's a screw loose, but that's not essentially what um mental self-care is for. Mental self-care is not to take care of somebody who is running mad. That's not what it is. It's not about that. So you need not be afraid and think that because somebody is saying you should indulge in a little bit of mental self-care, it means your mental health has been totally threatened and you're on the brink of insanity. No, it's so simple. It's simply means beginning to do those things that will stimulate your mind, that will stimulate your intellect, the ability to do all you can to keep your mind sharp. You agree with me that sometimes you go into a room and you basically forget what you went into that room for. You can keep your keys somewhere, you forget where you kept your keys. People will say, I remember back in the day, my mom would say, you use the left hand, you use left hand to drop it and all that. So many things, you sit down, you're feeling overwhelmed. Usually when you're feeling ill in the body, the thing you need, it calls for some form of medical care. When you're feeling ill spiritually, it calls for some form of spiritual self-care. If you go back to, I think, the second, that was what I spoke about when I was talking about the components of self-care. Spiritual self-care was the second one. So when we're talking about mental self-care, we're saying it involves doing those things that will help you stay mentally healthy. And you wonder, so who is a candidate for mental self-care? Gorgeous ladies, as I like to call us, and I even forgot to add, I normally do it as a preamble. This Do Over January is brought to you by The Woman Called You. We're actually a platform, hopefully, but we're doing our best to inspire, change through personal growth. I always say you can't give somebody what you don't have. So if you've not grown personally in certain areas of your life, how then can you give of yourself, where you're in a situation where you can step up and be counted, step up to help, step up to provide some form of assistance. So that's why we're here. We intend to grow into, I should say, the utmost of our abilities in terms of what we've been put on earth here to do. So, having said that, who is the candidate for mental self care? Sister, gorgeous lady listening to me, if you have poor concentration, you find out you're not sleeping well, that's the first point. There might be other components. Like I used to have issues with sleeping until I was diagnosed with sleep apnea December 9th, 2019. So up until date, I use a CPAP machine to sleep, you know, and I use a CPAP machine. So changes in sleep pattern, your appetite is changing for no reason, emotional outbursts, every little thing gets to you. Your nerves are frayed, you're disinterested, even for a woman, probably a lady, you are even disinterested in everything, even physical things. A wife, you don't feel like sex anymore. You just don't, for no reason. Maybe you've eliminated a medical reason, but you're totally disinterested in so many things. You can't make decisions as you would usually do. If you're this person who's always been quick on the money, and all of a sudden you see yourself not being able to make decisions. You're so undecisive, you know. You have feelings of worthlessness. You are distracted. The list is long. Some of us, we get so overwhelmed that at every little thing you burst into tears. for no reason, trust me, you're a candidate to begin to embrace mental self-care. You need to look out for yourself. Like I said to us the other day, self-care is not being indulgent. It's not being selfish. It's not, I always say it every week, it's not Machiavellian, like at any means, by any means necessary. No. It's you taking the decision and knowing that, look, I have to look out for myself. Just like I always tell people, when I had my journey, recovery and all of that, I knew I had to get better. I knew I was of no use to anybody. I knew that to continue to live in denial was betraying myself before even betraying the people who cared about me. So if you find yourself, in that space where your mood, everything about you is low, you're beginning to lose interest in everyday activity and all, I think you should just pause and consider some form of mental self-care. Maybe you would do all I would talk about now, and if you see it's not working, then you have to seek professional help. But you start, like I always say here, every time I remind people of what Apostle Ingogan said to me years ago, I always mention it. I've been mentioning it for the past 9 days. And she said, it's a big lie when people tell you you can't learn the art of using your left hand in old age. That the most important thing is what John Locke, the philosopher, said, that anybody can learn anything at any point in their life, so long as they learn it in stages. And let's assume that you've not experienced any of those things I listed above. My dear, for me, somebody like me personally, even at going on 52 now in a couple of weeks by God's grace, I just have to admit that as we grow older, your cognitive abilities, as they call them, they begin to somewhat diminish or decline. So whether you like it or not, you must do something that will cause your brain to stay active. And when your brain is active, it's not enough to charge to do that which will make you physically active. But if you can do those things that will make you mentally fit, it also constitutes mental self-care. And like I said, the 31 days are to declutter the brain, deconstruct so we can begin to gain clarity, construct the mind so we can begin to gain clarity. So one thing you need to embrace is mental health care. And when we talk about mental self-care, rather, I didn't say mental health care. Health, anytime health comes up, I mean, that's for the physicians. When we're talking about self-care, mental self-care is like giving yourself a well-deserved spa break. And you can do this in various ways. The first thing you can do for yourself when you decide, look, it's high time I do some mental self-care myself, I'll create a form of checklist. Like when I was talking about brain dump, I talked about the to-do list and all that. The first thing you need to begin to do is choose that, look, I'll give my mind a break. So I will be clear-headed. And how do you give your mind a break? If you go back to, I think it's day 4, I taught us one of the techniques to give our minds a break by the brain dump, where you just dump everything in your head, in your brain, everything that gives you wahala on a sheet of paper. If you go back, I don't want to take too much time. If you go back, you'll see what the technique entails. So you need to give your mind a break. You just need to stop. First thing I always like to tell people is that nobody is indispensable. Just apply the brakes. But this time it's not applying the brakes in terms of what you are doing physically, but what you are doing mentally. Offload those thoughts, offload those things, give your mind a break, do a brain dump, do a solution numbering technique, whatever it will take. Like I said, I don't want to sound preachy, so I'm not going to say pray. Pray is part of it. We did it 2 days ago when we talked about spiritual self-care and all that. So you need to choose, look, I'm going to give my mind a break. But like I said, every time you say you want to pause, the fact that you're pausing doesn't mean you're totally empty. you need to there has to be a displacement as you're carrying out all those things. Something worthy has to displace those foolish thoughts or negative thoughts or hanging thoughts that were in there. So when you decide to give your mind a break, the next thing you need to do is to begin to challenge your brain. For me, I found out not too long ago that I was unable to reel out phone numbers. I'm not joking. The only phone number I could just reel out like that was mine, my spouse. I couldn't even reel out my children's. I have one of my sisters, her phone number, maybe because we talk almost every day. I could reel out her phone number. And apart from that, I'm telling you, if I can't find my phone, I don't have the contacts of people. I used to have it before I could reel out phone numbers. I knew my brain was getting slow, and it's true. I could walk into a room and like, what did I go there to do? So my husband introduced me to Wordscape. It's one of this. It's on iOS, but you have a lot of other options on Android and all of that. It's a word game. I started doing this Wordscape game. Solitaire that I left years ago, I went back to doing solitaire, because everything will just pick up a device and the device does the work for us. So I realized I had to start charging my brain. Sometimes I will sit down to do times table. I'm not joking. You need to challenge yourself. There are some people that will tell you, I want to learn a new language. I mean, right now it's funny. One of my younger sisters is learning Spanish. And it's so funny. She says, Nene, you don't understand. I'm using this thing to kickstart my brain. So you see her every time she would, this thing like during the Christmas, she would speak into her phone to get you know, the Spanish translation of whatever it is she's saying. I'm like, I was asking her, do you plan it? No, 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 no. So what are you doing? What can you do to challenge your brain? And like all I've been saying about self-care in the last couple of weeks, what I might do for self-care, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's social, as we discussed yesterday, can differ from what you would, you know, what kind of exercise you would take up for your self-care. It's not one size fits all. Definitely not. The next thing you can do, challenging your brain, you can reboot your brain. And when you reboot your brain, you'll see that you begin to engage intellectually. And let me tell you, it's not enough for me to tell you, reboot your brain. It will also be important if you know the things you can do to reboot your brain. So many of us will have bad sleeping habits. Bad sleeping habits. And I know, the doctors will tell us that one of the ways we can reset our bodies, we can replenish ourselves, our body replenish itself, is during sleep. And one of the things that will be replenished during sleep is the brain. Some people tell you, they will practically brag about it. I don't need a long sleep. Two hours sleep is just enough for me. I'm sure if we have people that will tell you it's basically impossible for anybody to survive on just 2 hours sleep a night. You'll be highly strong, so many things, and when that happens, you can't think straight. I mean, personally, if I've been sleep deprived for some time, I can't think straight. That's why you see people, it's not just about being tired in the body. They go into the they behind the steering wheel and they're tired out. And before you know it, you can't function. You are trying to turn right. You see yourself turning left because the brain is tired. It needs to reboot. Another thing we'd have to do when we're considering mental self-care, when we're considering rebooting the brain, they will tell you we have to eat the right healthy diet. I remember a dietitian that was saying there's a connection between the brain and the tummy. I don't know much about that. That's a health something. But remember, she was telling me, she was saying then that some people, to reduce some form of headache, there's certain meals you need to take. So I'm sure, for sure, there's a connection between the brain and the tummy. So we need to reboot our brains by eating the right thing. I remember as children, cod liver oil, all those things, some kind of fish, whatever it is that would reboot your brain, you begin to engage in doing such things. Because if you reboot your brain and you get clarity, you will notice that at the same time, all those thoughts, all those negative thoughts, all those things, you'll be mindful. You'll be present enough. They call it to practice mindfulness. You would have, your wits about you to be able to make decisions that are important to your life. Another thing we need to do, so many of us think taking a break is a luxury. When you want to reboot your brain, I remember the Japanese, I used to work with them a couple of years ago. You know that thing some people do, they say, I want to buy my leave. I won't go on vacation. You give me the money instead. The Japanese will never take that. You must go on a purposeful break. And one thing we also need to do to reboot your brain, my gorgeous sister who is watching right now, give yourself permission to take that break. Some of us, we believe that if we take a break, everything around us will scatter. I remember towards the end of last year, I was truly overwhelmed. And I said to my family, I said, city people, hey, I can't do Christmas in this house. People think taking a break means you need to go to one. As I say, I need a break. I don't want to see the inside of a kitchen. I don't want to do that because it wasn't as if I was physically tired, but there was so much. And I just believed that if I could take a break from being a mother and a caregiver to my family for some time, it was going to work for me. And that was how we all carried ourselves and went somewhere. Nobody, for a full week plus, I didn't know anything about meal times. I handed over my bonus to his brothers. I needed that break, and I really did come back refreshed. Another thing you need to do, and I said it a couple of days ago when I said embracing the silence. Have you ever wondered why anytime they're talking about anything mental, you would always see an image of somebody doing yoga or so in the lotus position and just this quiet? Some people will say, no, you're a Christian, don't talk yoga, this and that. I'm not here to discuss the pros and cons of that. All I know is that just learn to assume a position that gives you this feeling of quiet. Some people just lay down. Have you seen people in the park just lay down on the grass somewhere and just staring into the sky? You just need something that quietens your mind. That is one of the ways you can reboot your brain. There's this saying also in Japan, like I said, I worked with the Japanese, when they say, if everything else fails, breathe. If everything else fails, breathe. So many of us, honestly, the kind of breaths we take, because we're so worked up and all that, we're actually just taking short bursts of air. Just choose to just sit down sometimes, just be supine and just take in breaths. If you're watching me right now, just taking a deep breath and hold it for a moment and exhale. You will feel a slight tingling. That's oxygen. So we deny ourselves these little pleasures. We just rush through the day. Even if it's the only thing you will do as you choose to reboot your brain, decide to focus on your breathing. It's just that it's been plugged now. I have this little small Bluetooth speaker that is always playing. You see, I don't bother to transfer it from my phone. It has its USB flash drive connected to it. It's always playing calming music for me. I just shut down and I listen to music. Or you can choose to take a walk. Only if the area is safe for, please. I'm not telling you to go and take a walk in an area that is not safe. Nobody can guarantee your safety. Go for a long walk. Do something. Just they always call it leave the crime scene. Yes, sometimes your life can be a crime scene. It's not as if when I'm talking about crime scene, I'm not saying it's terrible or something. No, 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 no. Anything that is causing you to be overwhelmed is a crime scene, in my opinion. You know, I might be wrong, but anything that will cause you to be overwhelmed is a crime scene. Then the one that most people don't like hearing, I've been saying in the past couple of days, whenever I need to touch base on that, I say, look, in fact, sometimes people are like, no, you're not usually on Facebook now as you used to be before. When we see you, it's just to post scripture, what say. That's because I literally had to take a break from social media. In fact, in the last couple of years, every first 3 months, I just go away from it. I just come in on my birthdays to acknowledge people. My birthday to acknowledge people, people's greetings and well wishes. Then I come back sometime in April. And I started doing that because, man, at the height of my political commentating or whatever it's called, man, sometimes the exchanges were so vitriolic, bitter, and all that. And it started following me out of Facebook. That I would sleep, I would think of, I would just imagine something. It was really getting, I mean, it was really getting bad. So I learned to take a break from social media. And it's not as if it's a complete break anybody should do, but if you need to reboot your brain, you just need to step out sometimes, step away from the violence, step away from the verbal violence, just step away. So that's that for rebooting the brain. The next thing we need to do, if I didn't even put up this thing, so someone will know what we're actually talking about. The first one I spoke about, let me see if I can put it because I just don't want to jump. I said number one. Sorry, I didn't put it on the screen. I like to put it so you can always scroll forward to see what it is. I said number one is give your mind a break so you are clear headed. Number two, challenge your brain. Number four, reboot your brain so you can engage intellectually. Then number five now, that's the next I'm going to, is challenge your negative thinking. Some people, you don't know what I've been through. You don't understand this. If you're incessantly complaining to somebody, and when the person tries to give you their 2 cents, you still insist the person doesn't understand it. So what's the need? Sometimes we just go in circles and circles and circles, and our mental health, our mental space just continues to deteriorate. So a woman should make the decision today. If you're somebody, every time you're prone to negative thinking, try to challenge the status quo today. Challenge the status quo today. That I will do my best to stop thinking negatively. Every single thing, every single time is an opportunity to be negative. A woman has to take and make that decision today that I will do my utmost, you know, to let go of negative thinking. And funny enough, it will look good. It'll actually look good on you if I put it that way. So one of the ways you can, do mental self-care, make up your mind. Make up your mind and say, I will not have those negative thoughts. Remember, it's not easy to say. That's why I taught us the brain dumping technique. You have to go back to that episode. I think it was day 4 or so. I'll check anyway because I'll do a run through. So you have to go back to the brain dumping technique. So the number 5 thing you need to do. This is a checklist. Remember, because like I said, everybody has different self-care techniques, have different self-care techniques that will work for them. So the fact that this one is working for person A doesn't mean work for person B. That's why I try as much as possible to run through quite a number of things, and then you just pick the one and give yourself the best fit and all that. The next one you need to do, which is very important, and I'm sure most people will consider this, for their own mental self-care checklist. Avoid toxic people. I tell you, Betty Downers, people who will always rain on your parade, kill joys. They can affect your mental space, their words, their body language, and all of that. If you want to give yourself a much needed mental self care, mental rest, you do well to avoid toxic people because, even the word of God tells us, is as a man's heart is, so he is. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. It talks about evil communication, corrupting good manners. Toxicity is evil. Toxicity is evil. So you will do your best, if you insist that your mental space has to be clear, has to be healthy. You need to avoid toxic people. Some people continuously hang around toxic people without knowing that it's they can't truly help them. You're not a professional to help a toxic person anyway. But some people keep on hanging around thinking, I can change the person, I can do this, I can do that. And except in a situation where maybe it's a spouse, I don't know if somebody can just stand up and, but I would think that there were some flashpoints to indicate that this person was toxic to begin with. But then again, you see, some people's toxicity usually crops up at a point much further than the time whoever they're with knew them. So, whichever be the case, this self-care tips that I'm putting out here for you, it's only if whatever situation you find yourself in is not in the extreme, because at the end of the day, that is the thing with self-care. If you're not able to deal with the issue, if you're not able to go through whatever it is on your own, I always advocate that you seek some form of help. The next thing you need to do when you choose to embark on mental self-care is learn not to feel selfish when you say no. For the last couple of days, I've been talking about people who overreach, you overcommit, and then you get overwhelmed, you're tired, and I mean, people, your nearest and dearest suffer for it and all of that. People who like to please other people and all that, it has the repercussions usually are mental repercussions. So today I'm saying, don't let anybody make you feel selfish, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. The fact that you say an emphatic no for something you believe you should say no for, you shouldn't feel bad, because in as much as I said self-care is not a selfish act, don't say no for the heck of it. Don't say no to somebody because you just want to say no. Say no when you know, without any doubt, that it's expedient. You say no. Some people say yes, say yes, say yes, not because they really want to do that thing, but because they want to, you know, they want to please people. When you're a people's pleaser, it has they call it diminishing returns. Yes, because you keep on doing it, but there are certain parts of your life that you will not really be okay. Why keep reaching? Why keep overcommitting when you know at the end of the day you're not happy? At the end of the day, you feel worn out and all of that. So today I'm saying to somebody, one of the components of mental self-care is for you to begin to train. If you're somebody who has always felt guilty when you say no, today you need to unlearn that train of thought. You need to understand that it's okay for you to say no. And you'll be surprised that when you don't feel selfish because you said no, even the person or the circumstance or the situation to which you're saying no to, they will all begin to come around. So today I'm urging you, don't feel guilty. This continuous vicious cycle of guilt should stop, because it's one of the things that can actually affect your mind, adversely. It can affect your mind adversely. Another thing you need to do when you're embarking on mental self-care, a gorgeous woman, I don't know if you're watching or you watch later, learn to take should out of your vocabulary. I should do this. I should be doing this now. I'm sleeping, while I should be cooking. I'm here while I should be in church. I'm this while I should be. Why? That one is even good. Oh, what am I doing in this home when I should have been? See, if you continue, in both will call it shoulda coulda. If you continue in the vicious cycle of I should have been, oh, what am I doing in your house? I should have been in this thing. Look, you are only giving and putting yourself under unnecessary pressure. And if you continue to put yourself under unnecessary pressure, very soon something has to give. And that's something that usually gives first is your mental health. So I want a woman to today choose to take should out of your vocabulary. Stop feeling you should have done this. Stop feeling you should have done that. Wherever you are right now, think of the best you can make of that situation. Think of the best you can make out of that situation. Choose that. Look, moving forward, I will not only just look out for my mental health through the right kind of mental self-care, but I would also choose that the best way to take care of myself is to look out for myself. Don't you see what happens in the plane? They tell you when the plane loses air pressure, what do they say to you? I came in from Port Harcourt today. The same thing. They'll say to you, you will first help yourself before you can assist others. If you don't choose, don't let anybody make you believe that self-care of any form is self-indulgent. It's not. Because if you don't put on that mask, if you don't choose to refuel yourself, is it emptiness you continue giving to people? You cannot pour out of an empty vessel. Most of the times, when we allow ourselves to be worn out, trust me, people will still come to you for help. But what are you going to give? What are you going to give to them? So one thing I want us to understand is we should truly make a practice of self-care. A practice of self-care. And once you choose to begin to make this practice of self-care a part of your life, when you begin to make it a part of your life, you will see that change is imminent. And when change just comes, you will see that all of your senses are engaged. And that's the truth. All of your senses are engaged. So today I'm asking a gorgeous woman watching me, choose to take care of your mental health. You can choose today, like I said, concerning my sister, to learn a new language. You can choose, like was said in a program earlier this evening I was involved in, begin to dance your heart out. Go to your app stores on your phone. Get word and mind kind of games. Do brain exercises. Bring out Monopoly. Play it with your children. Bring out what cards. Play what. Some of us as adults, we don't. That's why sometimes when I write on social media and I see people say things like, "Oh, she's speaking English." Choose to expand your vocabulary. Not every time we're just using the same words that are trending. We move, we're outside. Expand your vocabulary. Write, journal. There's nothing wrong with trending grammar. But write. There's some people I look forward so much to reading on social media. Just their ordinary posts. I want to read it because their language is colorful. I see, because before somebody can play with language, the person's mental state is alert. You are writing out that text. Don't fall for the temptation of using short captions to write texts. So many of us now, we only communicate with emojis. And I know, because even for me sometimes, I know when my brain is tired, you will see me putting up only emojis. Yes, the emotion behind the emojis might just be even as strong as the words I would have written to convey them. But I always know it's a sign of me being mentally tired. So today I'm saying to a woman, make it your priority. Look out for those signs that will indicate that you need mental self-care. In all the components of self-care I've discussed so far, learn to begin to look out for those signs that indicate that you need some kind of self-care in that area. And you see everything will just begin to pan out. Everything will begin to, fall into place. So I'll sign off with that. And tomorrow, like I said, we ought to be taking the financial aspect of self-care. But I said I would like someone who is, if not necessarily a financial guru, but somebody who would be able to dot the I's and cross the T's very well on that topic, because the person might just necessarily tell us how the importance of budgeting, the importance of this, and I'll be ready also personally to learn as well. So tomorrow we'll probably be going, we might just decide to start on another component, another awesome way we can declutter our mind. And from next week, we'll start with the deconstruction. And by the final week, we will begin to enter the realms of clarity. So thank you very much. For those of you who watched, I said thank you. For those of you who will be watching later, please remember to go see the other episodes. I know I made it easy with the captions, so you can just scrub and go to the next captions, so you know what um, is important to you. So till tomorrow, thank you. God bless you.